Exquail. Aquanasilum nala tanaquail. Antape Chantal Morve. Welcome to the Education Committee meeting of Wednesday, November 6th, 2024. It's now 6:05 p.m. And I will call the meeting to order. The chair will call the meeting to order with great respect and humility. We acknowledge and honor the lands of the Snuneymuxw people. The Snuneymuxw people maintain their profound, unique, and spiritual connection to the land through ages, traditions, teachings, stewardship, and expressions of reciprocity. Just going to do a quick mic check, though. Folks, can you hear me well on your end? So I've been having some issues with my microphone, and I'm kind of worried here. So
I can hear you fine.
thank you. Thank you very much, Karen. I wanted to highlight today, or November 1st is the start of Indigenous Disability Awareness Month, IDAM. From the website of the Indigenous Disability Canada, a BC Aboriginal Network on Disability Society, Indigenous peoples of Canada experience a disability rate significantly higher than that of the general population. Indigenous Disability Awareness Month, IDAM for short, brings awareness of those barriers and the issues that Indigenous peoples living with disabilities and their families face every day. More importantly, though, despite these barriers, IDAM celebrates the achievements of Indigenous peoples living with disabilities and recognizes the significant and valuable contributions they make to our communities socially, economically, and culturally every day. Indigenous Disability Awareness Month was created by BC ANZ, BC Aboriginal Network on Disability Society. I encourage everyone to go take a look at their website. In 2015, so 2024 is its actual 10th anniversary. Since then, IDAM has now annually declared and recognized by the provinces of British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the Assembly of First Nations, BC First Nations Summit, Métis Nation of BC, Council of Yukon, First Nations, the town of Inuvik, and hundreds of other organizations and communities across Canada. IDAM is the only Indigenous disability-specific awareness initiative of its kind in the world. In 2017, the United Nations International Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities recommended to Canada to officially declare November as IDAM annually. That hasn't happened yet, I don't believe. So that's something to be working towards, and hopefully more organizations can come on board and declare their support for Indigenous Disability Awareness Month in November. I wanted to bring that all to your attention because I think it's an incredibly important aspect of our world and our culture and what we're doing here in the school district as well, and the intersectionality of these identities is incredibly important when we have these discussions to be aware of that when we're moving forward in our work together. I'm going to move on to number 2, additions. So I'm actually going to ask, are there any additions, deletions, or changes in order? And I'm going to go to the chat here. I could put it in the chat box. Okay, seeing none. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Just put it in the chat. Mark, seconded by Naomi. Thank you very much. Okay, is there anybody opposed to the agenda? Okay, nobody's opposed. We approve the agenda as it is. The approval of the minutes. There's a motion. Would somebody like to move the motion? That the minutes from the Education Committee meeting held on October 2nd, 2024 be approved. Mark, thank you. Seconded by Naomi, thank you very much. Great, now we're going to be moving on to presentations. I do believe, though, that the presentations are all going to be mixed with the number 8, which is the senior staff reports. So I am supposed to leave this now in the capable hands of Laura Tate, our Deputy Superintendent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with permission from the chair, I will just essentially be combining 8.1 and 8.2, if that's all right.
Yes.
Thank you. So the focus of the report this evening is student wellness. You'll be receiving multifaceted information. You'll hear both from district staff and from school staff. We've got Dover Bay Secondary and Seaview Elementary with us here this evening. We'll have both of those schools presenting in just a little bit, and our hope is to have the schools present one right after the other, and then at that stage we'll pause for any questions if there are any. So I will start by sharing a short bit of information around the most recent student learning survey from last school year. As you're aware, this is an annual survey that's conducted with grades 4, 7, 10, and 12. And the purpose of the survey is to provide data which help to improve the well-being of youth in BC and, obviously most specifically in our district, to improve student outcomes and support school districts in their planning, which of course aligns greatly with the intentions of the strategic plan. I'm going to digress for a tiny bit and hopefully I won't get too far down the garden path. What's new this year with the student learning survey is the addition of what the ministry is calling constructs. So in an effort to make the survey or to increase the validity, make the survey more valid, the ministry has created a new and better way, more valid way of analyzing the data. Essentially, the constructs are themes. So they're themes where many questions that ask similar questions are grouped together. And these groupings are called constructs, and they're grouped even further, these further themed into what they're calling summary constructs. And so this year, or from the data from last year, we received the student learning survey data as we always have by question, but we're also being to this data now grouped by these constructs or these themes, if you will. So in the information sheet provided to you, I've provided you with the data for 4 questions. And these questions correspond to the objectives and metrics in the strategic plan under the goal of student and employee wellness. And the data from these questions and others will be used this year by schools and learning services as planning information for the next school year. I'm just going to pop that data on the screen. You have this, or at least similarly looking in your agenda package. But here is essentially the 4 questions that pertain directly to the strategic plan, which are, do you feel welcome at your school? Is school a place where you feel like you belong? Do you feel safe at school? And at your school, how many adults do you feel care about you? And on screen, we've color coded the data a little bit because there's a lot of information. So in the blue, that's the data from grades 4 and 7, and from the green, that's 10 and 12. The ministry provides the student learning survey data essentially with the positive responses. Not every question, and sometimes like for grade 10 and 12, there are 81 questions. The kinds of responses, they vary. So there could be 2 choices in one question and 4 choices in another question. So the ministry groups them similarly to positive responses. And so in the center column of each color, you'll see the percentage of responses that were positive. So at the grade 4 and 7 levels, almost 73% of kids feel welcome at school. About 56 feel like school is a place where they belong. 77 report feeling safe, and roughly 63% feel they or have given an example of 2 or more adults that they feel connected to at school. And then similarly in the green, we've got grades 10 and 12. Almost 70% report feeling welcomed at school. 52 feel a sense of belonging. A little over 76% report feeling safe, and almost 69 speak to adults that at least 2 adults at school that they feel connected to. So I've included the construct scores, and you've got lots of information in your package around that. So essentially, these are the 4 questions that will relate directly to the strategic plan. And we will be looking at this data and others to inform planning for this year and for next year. I don't know why my screen went black. So moving on. Another piece I'd like to mention is in your package, I've also provided you, the board, with a link to a ministry website that includes an overview of all BC public school data. And within that, you can access the Nanaimo Ladysmith Public Schools data for all the variety of ministry held data, such as the Student Learning Survey, Foundation Skills Assessment, graduation assessments, graduation rates. It's all on there. And I thought I would mention that and provide that link for you, because at any time you can go in to those files on that website and you can explore. It's got everything from demographics of the Nanaimo Ladysmith area to, as I said, graduation rates, and all of the ministry data that we get is released throughout the school year. As you're well aware, the ministry's data release schedule doesn't necessarily align with school district's planning, but I thought this is a nice place for trustees to explore, because it's there. They keep it as up to date as they keep us up to date, and you can explore around it and within your own time schedule. Lastly, I thought I would take also the opportunity to share just a small snippet of information around a current data collection that we are embarking on. So as you know, we are attempting to grow our use of data, making data-informed decisions, particularly our school-based and district-based data. And we have adapted an overall student screener. So this is a screener, meaning it's a snapshot in a particular context for students that might give us some high-level information and might indicate to us and schools that maybe we need to dig in, explore, or inquire a little bit. So it's a bit of a snapshot to tell us, I might need to look more closely at this particular student or this particular group of students. So this is a practice that originated with our Indigenous learning team, and we are very grateful for this work that they've done over the last number of years. And we've taken this screener and we've adapted it a little bit, and the current version of the screener uses 6 domains that schools consider when they're providing a little bit of a snapshot: school connection, academics, family and caregivers, healthy peer and community relationships, mental health and wellness, and physical health and wellness. So in looking at a rubric that contains these domains, schools can give, again, a bit of a quick snapshot indicator as to whether a student might be green and things are okay, yellow, maybe a couple of factors that we're concerned about, and red, we need to hone in, particularly around our 3 priority populations. And so that's just a bit of an information item for you, just to give you a small example of some of the work we're doing around creating accessible data for schools. So following me this evening will be a district overview around student wellness through a data-driven lens, followed by 2 school presentations, as I mentioned. And so you will be hearing information that touches on tiers 1, 2, and 3, and how we're growing our practice around a multi-tiered system of support within the realm of student wellness this evening. So I welcome and will turn it over to Director of Instruction, Kirsten Funke Robinson.
Thanks, Laura. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to pull up my slides here. And did I hit share first? Let me get to my share. Thank you. Sorry. I think you're good now. I think you've got the right view here. So I'm going to hone in this evening on a particular facet of student wellness, and that is mental health in particular. And so in following Laura's discussion of a couple of key data sources that we consider here and that we're working to consider increasingly in our district, I'm also going to go through a few other key data sources just briefly to touch upon some of the pieces that we are considering in terms of tailoring some of our strategies and interventions here in the district to support student mental health. So in addition to our work around student wellness to help create welcome, safety, and a sense of belonging in schools, we've also got some strategies that are tailored to different degrees in terms of individual student needs. So first of all, when we think about mental health, I think this is obviously a really hot topic in our community and in our society at large. We need to be really careful about indicating what we're talking about when we're talking about mental health. And so certainly the World Health Organization leads work in this area and talks about mental health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not simply the absence of illness or disease. And so in recognizing that mental health is merely one facet of students' overall wellness, we recognize that for all humans to be well, the mind, body, and spirit need to be taken care of in a variety of ways. And we look to the work of the Assembly of First Nations and Health Canada in the First Nations Mental Wellness Continuum Framework that was published back in 2015, but still is very much a guide to this day, to look at mental health through the lens of a personal resource that can help individuals grow and flourish and to be resilient in times of difficulty. We recognize that mental health has been associated with hope, purpose, meaning, and belonging, and is rooted in culture and community. And I think that this depiction is extremely important for us to consider because it differs perhaps a little bit from a medicalized view of mental health. And so we recognize that very importantly, mental health, although it's situated within an individual, it's also nourished by an individual's situatedness within their community. When we look to Healthy Schools BC, they remind us that connectedness is about creating school communities where everyone feels cared for, safe, seen, heard, supported, and significant. So when we take a look at some of our data sources, we have increasingly some higher and higher quality data sources to draw upon, including some of which we just even got access to today in terms of the Youth Development Instrument results. So when we look across some of these measures, we have indicators such as the McCreary Society report on adolescent mental health. We also have early childhood measures such as the CHEC and the EDI. And across these measures, which really look at mental health and student wellness from preschool all the way through school years, we observe that there's a very high proportion of students and caregivers who report a high degree of stress, along with a low proportion of respondents who indicate that they are able to access supports for these stressors. There are additionally indications that children and youth have concerns that other people, including their own family members, may find out about their mental health concerns. Oh, my apologies, Jackie. Just let me know that my slides aren't changing. It's okay. Maybe I'll just stop my slideshow here for a minute. Bear with me for a moment here, folks. My apologies.
Sorry, I thought that was a really fulsome description of your first slide. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of info for one slide. So now I'm starting to understand that, okay, we were actually supposed to be seeing other slides. Sorry, I apologize. I didn't realize. If you want to go to the second slide though, real quick.
You betcha.
Just to show that was,
Let's
okay, great. It's just reminding us what you just spoke about. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Do you see my second slide now, Chantel?
No, actually, I only see your first slide now.
Okay, I'm not sure what's going on, but
Now
you know
I
what?
see the second. Now I see the second.
Okay, you know what I'm going to do? Let's just do this. I'm going to do with a little bit of a lower tech solution. So
Okay.
this was the slide that I was just talking to when we talk about how we depict mental health and sort of where it's situated within a broader depiction of student wellness. Okay. All right, so then I was beginning to talk about data. Thank goodness Jackie came and let me know.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about data, as I said, we have increasingly access to high quality resources that give us a wide variety of data on student wellness generally and mental health specifically. So we're certainly seeing a number of concerning trends emerge across these measures. So those look like things like high degree of stress reported right from early childhood, including stress reported by caregivers in preschoolers. And then this really continues throughout the school years. And we see barriers to accessing supports being reported by children and youth. In addition to some of these broad scale survey data instruments, we also are increasingly reviewing our local district data. So for example, we collect data about some highly specialized interventions for really significant and serious strategies for things like suicide risk assessment and threat assessment. And so when we look at that data, there's already a trend that we've observed of an increase over last year's if we continue at the rate that those interventions are needing to be applied. So there's a lot of really clear indicators that student mental health and wellness is really something we need to be paying a lot of attention to in our community right now. I think the next piece that I'd like to talk about is getting into the mental health and school strategy, which I've talked about before with trustees, and hopefully you all have some awareness of this. This is a guide that comes from the ministry and helps to steer our work provincially. And so in our school system, we certainly need to be working toward carrying out a vision for a whole school system that not only promotes mental health, but that mental health promotion is embedded in all facets of the school system, including culture, leadership, curriculum, and learning environments. So it's much more than a few key strategies applied by counselors or child youth family support workers. We're talking about rich work that really covers the breadth of all of our roles across the system. Given that we know that ample school-based, there's lots of ample evidence about school-based programs and the impact that they can have on influencing mental health and reducing risk factors in schools, we know that all of our schools are working hard to achieve collective responsibility for the wellness of our students. So we embrace the multi-tiered system of supports, or MTSS, as the framework that we use. And this hopefully is a little bit familiar to you because this is a very strong evidence-based framework that we also employ with academic areas such as literacy and numeracy. So here in NLPS, our staff are working very hard to grow their own skill sets in this burgeoning area of need in terms of student mental health. And we're really working to provide a continuum of supports that are aimed at improving student mental health in the district. The foundation of MTSS is strong data collection so that we are identifying students in need early and that we're intervening in a timely fashion with high quality interventions and strategies. So as I mentioned, MTSS begins with gathering and reviewing data to help schools identify and support students as needed. And then the data collection continues with ongoing review of progress monitoring. And then sources include not only high-level ministry, provincial or district level data, but also site-specific data. So I've talked about some of those broader sources, but at the school level, this includes consideration of things like the red, yellow, green data that Laura mentioned. It also includes data from things like student interviews, observations, and other key data like attendance and academic progress. So the triangle diagram that you see there is most commonly how MTSS is depicted visually. And so we talk about those three sections as tiers. And if you look down at the bottom of that triangle, the broadest section would be tier 1. And so we often think of tier 1 as universal supports or primary prevention. And at tier 1, we strive to deliver high quality instruction and support in a positive school environment in all school settings across every classroom, every setting in schools. So with respect to mental health supports in particular, universal supports could look like things like classroom social emotional learning programs, positive behavior intervention strategies, and school community building strategies. At Tier 2, which would be more targeted supports or secondary prevention, which would be accessed by some students, this would be increasingly specialized support beyond Tier 1, possibly accessed in a small group setting, and it's provided to those students who require it. So examples in terms of mental health supports at Tier 2 might look like focused social emotional learning or skill building programs, often provided by staff other than classroom teachers. They might be offered by counselors, child, youth, family support workers, or oftentimes in collaborative facilitation with other community partner agencies. At Tier 3, the tip of our triangle, this would be more targeted or intensive supports. We sometimes refer to these as tertiary prevention, depending on the nature of the strategy. And so at Tier 3, we would have fewer students accessing this level of supports. Oftentimes, these supports come in a one-on-one setting, and they're provided to those students who require it. Examples of those more intensive supports would be interventions planned by multidisciplinary teams. This could include specialized school-based team members, such as counselors, but also typically involve services provided by community-based professionals. And our school staff work hard to collaborate with those community-based professionals to deliver those interventions. At this point, I'm going to talk about behavior and digital threat assessment, which is an example of a Tier 3 strategy. And the way that the rest of our presentation is going to flow here is that we have 3 different examples of strategies in place in our schools that hit each one of those different tiers. And so we're going to start at the tip of that triangle with a Tier 3 strategy. And it's going to be me talking about behavior and digital threat assessment. I'd hoped it would be our new district principal of Safe Schools and Wellness, Sean Shahi. That had been our plan, but unfortunately he wasn't able to be with us at the last minute. So you'll get me. I hope I do it justice for Sean here tonight. You may have some familiarity with the BDTA already. This is a threat assessment process which is administered through Safer Schools Together at a provincial level. Formerly, we used a protocol known as VITRA, or Violent Threat and Risk Assessment, and provincially we're making that shift. So earlier this year in October, we had 2 trainers from Safer Schools Together come in and offer 3 full days of training. We had the opportunity to offer the training to all of our counselors, child, youth, family support workers, principals, vice principals, all across both elementary and secondary, learning services department members, our ICY team, our district safety manager, and a number of our community partners from Island Health, MCFD, Child and Youth Mental Health, and our RCMP youth unit members. So we had an excellent multidisciplinary representation in the training process as well. So behavior and digital threat assessments are completed when there are reports of worrisome behaviors that involve threat making made towards either students, staff, or a school. And recently we're finding that the majority of threats tend to be identified through social media and online activity, but they also come through student interactions, through utterances, writings, drawings, or reports that come to our attention when they're made by students through the Erase Report It tool. We rely heavily on Safer Schools Together and the worrisome online behavior reports that they provide to us monthly, because those often contain really key information to carrying out the threat assessment process. We also often rely on Safer Schools to provide us with really clear and detailed information on students' online activity. Just to give you a sense of how important the behavior and digital threat assessment process is within our district, already at this point in the year, we've done a number of threat assessments, including one even before the school year started. So it's really critically important to how we interact with our community partners and the timely sharing of information to engage when a potential threat exists. In the BDTA, there are 3 steps. I won't go into too much detail here, but essentially it's important for you to know that when we become aware of that threat, potential threat, we pull together a local threat assessment team, which would typically include the counselor, CYFSW, principal or vice principal, often the RCMP, in the case of Ladysmith, the general duty officer, or in Nanaimo, one of our youth unit officers. We would pull together and determine if there is an intent and a means to carry out harm as per the threat. And if there is, then we would move into a comprehensive multidisciplinary step 2 process. And as well, if needed, into the step 3, which includes a comprehensive wraparound creation of a risk reduction plan. So when we consider the level of risk in the behavior and digital threat assessment, I think one of the differences for anyone who's familiar with the VITRA in its previous iteration is that this is a much more trauma-informed approach. We consider the students' behavioral baseline and data from 6 different domains. So we consider the individual, peer, family, community, school, and digital baseline information. So once we've completed that threat assessment and we've made a supportive plan to enhance protective factors and reduce risk factors across those domains, then the team is able to work together to carry out those strategies. It's really, at its essence, it's a very comprehensive way to wrap around a student who's really crying for help in a very sometimes upsetting or threatening way. Because the BDTA exists at the tip of our threat assessment or of our MTSS triangle, we would only apply this strategy for very few students, which is typical for our MTSS triangle, as I described before. So what we'd like to do now is, moving from this example of a tier 3 strategy, I'd like to turn things over to our schools, who are going to walk us through an example of a tier 2 strategy. In the case of Dover, our team from Dover Bay is going to talk about Preventure, which is a tier 2 strategy. And then Seaview, who will share details of a tier 1 strategy called Open Parachute. And they'll be able to give you details that I think will be of great interest to you. My apologies for the screen sharing difficulties, but I'd like to turn it over to the Dover Bay team now directly, please.
One second. I just got to see the share.
We're just going to take a second to share our
Just going to
screen.
get the screen up here. 1 second. All right.
Okay. I'm Joanne Tomiyama. I'm one of the counselors at Dover Bay Secondary School, and I've got Louis Van Grudel with me today, who is also one of the counselors here at Dover Bay. So thanks, Kirsten. Just to make a quick connection to what Kirsten was saying about the different tiers, we're looking at offering a program this year called Preventure. And originally, when Louis and I looked at the program, we kind of thought it was a tier 1 opportunity, just because it's something that's open and accessible to all students at grade 8 at Dover Bay. But now that we're getting into the point of looking at creating workshops for students, we're recognizing that it does kind of fall a bit more into the tier 2 prevention area of mental health. So looking at what is Preventure. Oh, Louis. There we go. Okay. So what is Preventure? Preventure is an evidence-based prevention program that uses personality-focused workshops to promote mental health and delay and reduce substance use amongst youth. So the program aims to equip youth with self-efficacy and cognitive behavioral skills to help them cope with common challenges such as stress, peer pressure, interpersonal conflict, and identity development. The program delivery will consist of 3 60-minute workshops. Through a variety of workbook exercises, youth develop adaptive coping skills, learn how to set long-term goals, and channel their own personalities towards achieving those goals. The program aligns with many aspects of our BC school curriculum, complementing the educational and social emotional learning goals we want all students to achieve. The program teaches students about goal setting, short-term and long-term consequences. It promotes strategies for managing emotional and social changes and challenges during adolescence.
And the program also touches on all 5 core social emotional learning competencies. Through engaging in the workbook exercises, youth are taught self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship building skills, and social awareness. We all have personalities, and it affects how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. So research has shown that certain personality traits are associated with mental health and substance use behaviors. To help students relate to each other, the Preventure program uses personality traits to group students who identify with similar interests. So the 4 personality profiles that Preventure uses are negative thinking, anxiety sensitivity, which are internalizing traits, and looks at sensation seeking and impulsivity as externalizing traits. Okay, so about a year ago, Louis and I went to a Pro-D Day in Vancouver. And initially what caught our attention about the program was it focuses on exploring and understanding more about who you are as an individual. It provides tools and skills to help support students in setting personal goals. It builds early connections to trusted adults at school as we're focusing on our grade 8 cohort. And it raises awareness in youth to resources available in our community. So I'm going to pass on to Louis now, who will share a little bit more about the specifics and how we're looking at implementing the program here at Dover Bay.
Yeah, so as Joanne mentioned, when we look at Preventure, it is an evidence-based program. Research has demonstrated that Preventure can delay the initiation of substance use, reduce substance use, and reduce the frequency of substance use. The Preventure program has also been shown to reduce symptoms of anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and behavioral outcomes such as conduct and impulsive behaviors, as well as bullying and victimization among youth. So when we look at where we are here at Dover and what place we are in the implementation process, the first thing that I want to look at is specifically where we started, and that was that Pro-D, as Joanne mentioned. But then we actually started in the training pieces last May. So last May we started with the training. We had 7 facilitators trained and certified in prevention and running those workshops. This year, in this month or the month of October, we had 7 assistant facilitators trained and 3 more facilitators trained here at the school. And that training is crucial in actually being certified to run the workshops and work within those small groups in providing this program. When we look at starting up here at the school, one of the things we had to do is promotion. We started just simply through the promotion via like our school newsletter. We then stepped it up a bit and we actually sent a letter out via email to all grade 8 families. And then about a week after that, we then sent a passive consent letter, again explaining the program and providing an opportunity if families did not want to participate or if students didn't want to participate, they did have that option. We're really happy in how that promotion went, and I can honestly say that we only had 3 families or 3 students opt out of 311. So the really good results. We then moved into the screening phase. This was done 2 weeks ago, Wednesday, and all counselors actually went into Hum 8 classrooms. We again provided a little information on the Preventure program, and we offered the screening questionnaire, which is 23 questions for grade 8 students to answer based on a sliding scale. Strongly disagree, disagree, agree, strongly agree. And then from that point, all that data was actually captured within what's called the PASS system, which is a database that is run by Preventure. In that database, we are currently now looking at organizing it into or screening out some of those students that identified strongly with those personality types, and looking at organizing them now into workshops that we can provide the facilitators for and assistant facilitators. And we're currently ordering workbooks. We'll be ordering our workbooks from Foundry probably tomorrow. So we're really happy with the results and kind of where we are today. With the remaining students, we had about 186 students that did not associate strongly enough within those personality types. And those 186 students will actually remain in their Hum 8 class, and in that Hum 8 class, humanity teachers will actually be teaching a curriculum of mental wellness and, I believe, resiliency. So not next week, but the week of November 18th, we're going to invite students to those workshops. We're going to send out those invites, and where we can, there'll actually be personal invites with the facilitators, assistant facilitators. And then we're hoping that our workshops will start on the week of November 25th, and we should be wrapped up the workshops before the winter break. When we look at it, the other thing we have is we have a real partnership with Foundry, which is a mental wellness service that is provided here within BC. And Foundry has been great in the fact that they are covering a lot of the cost here for the school. They are covering basically implementation support. So we have an individual that we contact, Sherry Hanna, and if we have an implementation kind of question for her, she helps support us. They helped with our training. So every facilitator had 2 days of training to be certified. And the assistant facilitators went for 4.5 hours. There's a community of practice, so other schools and school districts that are implementing Preventure provides basically a community to speak about the implementation process and maybe pick up some tips or provide some. And the other thing we're doing is each school will need to record and then the other thing that they're actually providing is the actual workbooks for each and every student, which is, again, a huge cost. I think each workbook is about $10 to $15, at 114 students that are going to be taking part, is a substantial support. At the school level, we've been glad to have the support of our administration in going through this process. The staff organizes the workshops, ensures facilitators can attend those trainings. We deliver the student workbooks and participate in the community of practice. And at each school, we also are responsible for keeping that data, adjusting the data. Like if any student opts out, we have to know when they've opted out and what phase of the workshops or prior. And then we also look at the participant evaluations at the end. Oh, one too far, sorry. Oh, I was right. Okay. So that's kind of where we are at here at Dover, and what we hope takes place prior to the winter break. Any additional information can be kind of linked in this slide. There are information sessions that Foundry does offer. If additional information, you want to know more information about the Preventure program. Preventure also has a website as well as Foundry where information can be found and questions can be asked. Yeah, that kind of ends our presentation for right now, and I know there's another presentation coming up, but we welcome any questions after the next presentation. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm actually wondering if we do ask questions and that way maybe they could actually leave if they want to once we're done with our questions. I don't know how this is going to be set up here. Kristen?
We do have another school who's right on deck, so I think if you're okay, then that way they can both answer questions and no one is having to stick around extra long as compared to the other school team.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sounds good. We're going to hold our questions then. So write them out, folks, so you don't forget them. I know I have as well. I just want a real quick question though, is could we get a copy of those slides?
Yes.
Yes,
That would be
absolutely.
fantastic. And
We'll send
Kristen, if we
them
get
to Kirsten and then she can disseminate them.
fantastic, thanks. And Kristen, if you could, we'd love your slides as well. That'd be great. Thank you. Awesome. Okay. So we're going to hold those questions, but I got a speakers list already. So thank you. Next.
Thank you, and thank you for your flexibility with our format tonight. I see Lindsay popping on the screen, and I'm going to turn it over to her and the Seaview team to talk about Open Parachute, which is moving down our triangle to that base of the triangle and that Tier 1 strategy.
Great, thanks, Kristen. So good evening, everyone. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Lindsay Watford, the principal of Seaview Elementary. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing you to our wonderful counselor, Nika Salikas, and our amazing grade 6-7 teacher, Chris Johnson. I'm going to share my slides here, and hopefully this all works. Okay, does that look like it's sharing for you, Kristen?
I can see it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so a little bit about our school. Seaview takes environmental stewardship very seriously. You can see here we are part of a rigorous recycling program, and we have actually also won it's called the Energy Cup Challenge, the large Energy Cup Challenge. There's 2 different prizes. We've won it twice, and we hear that there's actually a school trying to take it from us this year. So we are already strategizing of how we're going to win it this year. Secondly, we have a lot of school spirit. This picture was actually taken it's called our Storm Alert Assembly, where we recognize really wonderful, positive student behavior. And during this one in particular, the staff had to dress up in these costumes and do a relay race for the kids. And lastly, we are very lucky to have Adam Manson as our language and land-based learning teacher and Hulkaminam teacher, as many of our students are connected with the Snanawas population. So tonight, our presentation is going to focus on increasing the number of students who feel welcome, safe, and have a sense of belonging. And we're doing that through the Tier 1 intervention and prevention program called Open Parachute. And the board goal that it is connected to is called Student and Employee Wellness. So I'm going to hand it over to Nika to explain a little bit about Open Parachute.
Okay, hello everyone. As Lindsay acknowledged, my name is Nika Salikas. I'm a counselor in the district, and I was asked to speak about Open Parachute, which is a program that I really support. So what is Open Parachute? Well, it is a comprehensive social emotional learning program intended to support the students' mental health and well-being from kindergarten to grade 12. It does this by using documentary videos featuring real youth talking about their own experiences and how they navigated their own challenges. So the focus of the program is on self-help and resilience rather than on adult-led solutions. The structure of each lesson, it starts with a big question, sort of like a hook to grab the students in. Then there's a preview activity designed to prepare the students for the content. There's a short video of about 1 to 5 minutes of student voices. And then there's a class discussion where skills are taught. Lessons finish with an exit strategy, which in the intermediate grades can track student progress. In the primary grades, it's generally either oral or paper. So teachers have the option of doing a series of lessons on a single topic, such as anxiety or friendship, or doing standalone lessons. So say something is happening in the classroom, the teacher wants to initiate a discussion about it, they could do a standalone lesson, and that can open up the conversation as well as guide the process. So lessons in the primary range are generally 15 minutes and the intermediate are 30 minutes. It does not require the teacher to have a lot of prior knowledge about mental health, and it is very easy to implement as it doesn't require a lot of prep. The content also aligns with the BC curriculum and the district goal of supporting student well-being. So I'm going to let Chris talk about what it was like in his classroom implementing this program, and then I'm going to come back and talk about how we successfully implemented it at Seaview.
All right, thank you, Nika, and good evening once again. My name is Chris Johnson. I teach grades 6-7 at Seaview. And first of all, I want to say just kudos to Nika for bringing this program forward to us as a staff. She came to us last year, I believe it was during the winter of last year, and talked about this at a school-based Pro-D. And as a teacher, you're always looking for something that, you know, is turnkey, is, you know, easy to implement. And this program is exactly that. As you know, elementary school, as a teacher, you have to know a little bit about everything. So trying to, you know, come forward with all these strategies for mental wellness and for anxiety and for depression, it's like, holy smokes, this is huge for, you know, I'm going to unveil. But when you get a program like Open Parachute, it's so turnkey, it's so easy to use. And like Nika said, you can go along with a variety of lessons, and you can start at one end and keep going. Or what I really use it for is, you know, we're with those kids 5 days a week, 6 hours a day, and we really know the vibe in that classroom, and we can see what's happening. We can see what is bubbling. And that's where you can pull one of the lessons. Tomorrow, for example, after short recess, I'm doing a lesson on understanding my stress response. And, you know, there's lots of pages here, but they're easy. And I don't feel scared. I don't feel nervous to unveil it, even if I haven't gone through everything step by step. It brings out great discussions with the class. And one of the things it really does, it normalizes with staff and students the language. And with all the staff getting on board just like they did, we're all teaching the same thing, and it's all normalized, and it's all the same. It's not like in the past you might do a mindfulness from Goldie Hawn's Mind Up, and then you might grab something over here and grab something over here, and who knows what the person next door is teaching. But now we're all teaching the same thing, and as the kids go through the grades, we started last year, and as they go through the grades, they know what to expect, and it's easy for them. What else? I want to say that an example of it being used last year to this year and normalizing the language is, I have a student, one of my students has really bad anxiety, and this student struggles on a regular basis. But the kids, my grade 6-7s, they're not afraid to talk about it, and they're not afraid to show their support, and they use the techniques and the tools that they get from Open Parachute. So this, I would say, it's a great thing to use district-wide. So yeah, I love it, and teaching it tomorrow. If you want to stop by, 10:30 a.m., I'll be doing it. Back to you, Nika.
So as you can see in this slide here, Seaview, last year, every single teacher utilized Open Parachute. And we were able to do that, as Chris said, is that I presented it through a professional development opportunity. And prior to going into the workshop, I was curious about what was preventing teachers from implementing programs. So I gave them a little pre-test, and what came up was knowledge. And I think, Chris, you identified that as well. Teachers didn't necessarily feel like they were knowledgeable enough to successfully implement a program. After the workshop, the pre-scores compared to the post scores where everybody had shifted. So there was more confidence and more willingness to implement a workshop that week or the next week. So that was quite significant, and I think it speaks to the program, that the program sells itself. Once teachers are exposed to it and start using it, they see the value in it, they see how easy it is, they learn about things about their students that they didn't know previously. So following the workshop, we decided that we would have a little contest because, as you see, Seaview has great school spirit, and they like a little bit of friendly competition. So with this contest, I had enlisted the help of a student helper. You can see him in the picture that he's standing next to his teacher. That was the week that his teacher had won. And the student helper and I went around to every teacher and asked them, what is your favorite beverage or favorite school beverage? And what is your favorite snack? So we personalized the contest to each of the teachers. And then my student helper would go out every week and go and talk to every single teacher and find out how many open parachute lessons that they did. For every open parachute lesson that you did, you got your name on a ticket, and that ticket went in a draw. And on the Friday, the student helper would choose a name. And when that teacher's name was announced, you could always hear the kids who were in that teacher's class clapping and cheering. It was real sweet. So I'm very grateful that the district has adopted this program, and I'm grateful to all of you for inviting me here to speak about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Kristen, is there any more?
That's it. Thank you for your patience as we worked our way through our MTSS triangle. I hope that was sort of illustrative. Our hope was to really give you a sense of that continuum, and what a better way to do that than to hear from folks that are using it every day. So thank you.
Great, thank you. I do know we have a speakers list here, our question person list. Mark, you are up first.
Thank you, Chair Chantel. Oh, my lovely Seaview team and Dover team. So awesome to see you all. I have so many questions. I'm going to stick to one for now. When I heard Seaview and Nika speak about the open parachute program, I had like 9 million questions. So if I can circle back around after, I will, after other people get a chance to ask. Because it's always great to hear from Lindsay, Nika, and Chris. And I'm digressing. Dover team, I guess it's a question about the PreVenture survey. Is that an anonymous survey, or do you kind of know which students answered what?
Yeah, so it's through the survey, they do have to put their name to it. The database is only available basically to Joanne and myself. So we're the only ones that know that survey belongs to that student. And we don't really know what they answered in the questions, to be honest with you. The only thing we know is specifically how they scored in each of the 4 personality types. So the survey itself, those questions aren't recorded. It's just the actual results of each personality type and how they scored in each.
Right. Thanks, Louis. Can I just ask a follow-up Chair. Thanks. With that, does that result get back to the parents at all, or is that just used internally?
So the students that screened out, we look at 1 standard deviation above the average as what we're kind of set the program to. And so students that qualify will get an invitation to be part of the program. And so the parents at that point would be aware that their child is going to participate in the program. We actually anticipate some parents might be like, oh, why isn't my child getting to do workshops, right? Because we've put out that we're going to offer these workshops, and so I think our worry might be the other way around about the parents that are wanting their child to still participate when they didn't screen in.
Right. Thank you so much, and I hopefully. I know my daughter is in grade 8 at Dover Bay, so I'm a little familiar with the program, and I'm really eager and optimistic to see this roll through. Thank you so much, and hopefully I can circle back to ask Seaview a question. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Naomi.
Thanks so much for the presentations, and also I just want to acknowledge that you all have had a very long day today, and you're sitting in front of the screens sharing some more, and I just really appreciate it. I had a question and a comment. So my question is more to Dover Bay. I just need the answer to this to then to be able to ask the actual question. But you mentioned that in your presentation that humanities teachers will be teaching this program. Did I hear that right?
No. So the counseling team and our student support team have been the ones trained as facilitators. We are the ones that are delivering the workshops. The students that are not taking part in the workshop will be still in their humanities class. And what the teachers have done for us to try to keep it equal for kids that are coming out to be part of the program is they're going to do an assignment based on mental wellness and resiliency with all of the students that are not in a workshop.
Okay.
So that all grade 8s get some kind of curriculum around mental wellness and resiliency and making coping skills and decision making. Just some students, the 186 will have it in their humanities class, and the 114 that have been screened out will do it with the counseling support team.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So it sounds really good. I just have I guess it's a concern, and maybe you can alleviate the concern. It's just you know, when I look at student wellness, I'm looking at a broad spectrum, not sort of narrowing it down to a specific students who, I guess, who score within a range that need the help, like to be in a different tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. I kind of look at it as like student wellness overall. And I'm just wondering, because you know, if students may not, even in 8, 9, 10, ever have any kind of stressors or things like that, and then something happens to them in grade 11 or grade 12, and they haven't had these sort of, to me, what you're offering is really good, but my concern is just that is that there'll be students that aren't getting these tools and these opportunities that may actually need it down the road. Can you respond to that?
Yeah, I think one thing, the first thing in response to that is based on the research in offering these workshops, there's what's called a herd effect. So when we have a reduction in one group of students, say with delayed substance use or reduced substance use, and then also in better mental wellness, that there's a herd effect with other students that might not be involved within the workshops. So that's one thing that the evidence suggests that Preventure actually provided to us. And I think the other piece is we have to remember that this is just one tool that we're kind of using. We still have all those other things in place in checking in with their triad teams, with ISTs, counselors, children family support workers, that every student is still involved in every aspect of that and included. If there's any concern that comes up with a student, this is just a preventative measure that we're taking in trying to identify some of those students and trying to supply some skills and tools to students.
Well, thank you for taking the time to become facilitators and try to help our students. I really appreciate it, and thanks for that answer. That helps me a lot. And just Seaview, keep up the great work. And somebody had commented on there about Chris being an MVP, and he is. Hey, Chris. Anyways, thank you very much, you guys, for your presentations. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Do you have any follow-ups, Naomi? I'm going to assume no, but if you have any other questions, just put yourself back on the list. I have Tim next on the list.
I meant that, Chris, actually, you know what I'm saying? Good to see you guys. Thank you guys for your presentation. I really appreciate obviously the hard work that's going into it. And mental health is, being a person that's worked in First Nations schools pretty much my whole career, mental health was quite the issue. Students and families. One thing I struggled with was we're helping the students, but they would just go home to difficult lifestyles and difficult parents and those kind of things. So we always tried to find ways to figure out ways to try to help the parents as well. So it's like almost like family support. When it comes to Preventure and Open Parachute, is there anything in there that speaks to how parents are involved at all? That's just a question. I'm not quite sure. We're always student first and that type of thing, and our responsibility isn't really to support the parents and caregivers, but our kids are just going home to sometimes miserable lives still, and they're coming back and they're right back to square one again almost, right? So it's just a question again, so it's whoever can answer that. But anyway, thank you for the presentations, appreciate it.
I'll talk on behalf of elementary school. As I said before, that we are with our students for so much, like 5-6 hours of the day, and elementary schools are very family oriented, and I know Seaview is really big on family. And as a teacher, you really get to know these students, and you get to, as you get them through the different grades. And Open Parachute doesn't have a direct component to working with families, but
it does have information that you can send to families.
Oh, okay. But for us, for me especially, if I see a student struggling or something like that, and they're safe enough, and different times that they're safe to come up and talk, and they talk in person or private or with myself or with a trusted adult. At Seaview, we do we don't just keep it in-house with the student. We do reach out, and like I said, Seaview, there's a great parent involvement, and most times parents are very receptive to it. I hope that answers your question.
And if I can just add to that, Tim, that there is actually a section for parents, so you can send parents information about a presenting problem. There's also a section for teachers and teacher well-being, which also fits into the district goals of staff well-being as well. Another feature of the program is if you have a student and they miss a lesson that day, you can actually send the lesson as a link home. So they could preview it that way. Parents could also be privy to it and just kind of know what kind of things they're doing in school.
Thank you.
Regarding, Tim, regarding Preventure, I would say the program works very closely with youth, right? Again, looking at their personality styles and developing coping strategies and helping them really understand who they are as people and how their thoughts and feelings change the way they behave. As far as parents here at Dover Bay, we spend a lot of time working in our support teams and our triad teams and with our child and youth family support workers, and work really closely with a lot of families in our overall support tiering within the school, but not necessarily Preventure itself.
Just to add to it too, Tim, the other thing that the hope was, and the reason that we ran it or implemented this program with our grade 8s coming into the high school level, was we thought it would be a good way to identify some youth early on that may be vulnerable, that may need that extra support. So when we talk about these workshops that we're actually putting on, we have 2 adults with a maximum group size of 12 students. So group sizes, we're going to try to actually keep them at around 10. So we'll have some pretty close interactions with vulnerable students, and it might, my hope is that some of that information might come to light to us when we talk about vulnerable families as a family system. And as a triad team, we would be able to help support, say, that family system, at least make them part of that education plan.
Thank you, board chair, for that, and thank you guys for the response. I really appreciate that. Again, I think I commented earlier just around mental health education sort of took a beat, and those were just kind of like how it was with 100% First Nations students in my schools, basically. So I had to really work hard at mental health supports in the school. So it's pretty dear and near to my heart as being a First Nations and seeing the issues that follow our youth. And it's not just our First Nations either. It's across the board really, but especially with social media and all the issues that we have with online stuff nowadays, it's a lot different. But thank you guys again for your presentation. Thank you.
I'm going to assume, Tim, that you don't have a follow-up question.
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, great. You can put yourself back on the list too if you have any more questions after that. Thanks. It is Mark next.
Thank you, Chair. I think Leanne hasn't had a chance to comment yet, so maybe by due process, she should go before me.
Sounds great. Leanne, if you'd like to come on and ask your question.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I just wanted to thank you guys for having the courage to be leaders in your school. I think it's really important that we normalize talking about mental health, because not only is it going to affect students' outcomes in schools, but it will affect their outcomes in life. And I just really want to thank you guys for stepping up and providing this service for our students. Thank you.
Well said, Leanne. Okay, Mark.
Well, as it turns out, I do have a lot of questions. Tim actually asked one of my 3 questions I have written down, and I got good answers from Nika and Louis and Chris. So thank you to all of you. I guess I'll go with this one I got down here is, I'll ask that one last because it's not that important. With regards to early results, are we seeing any early results coming out that are positive, that kind of reinforce how great this sounds, but Are we getting some good stuff coming out? Anyone?
Just
I know
in-
it's
in-
early, but
Yeah, in speaking about Preventure, I think when we looked at the early data, just in how certain students aligned with certain personality types, it was interesting to see that when there was a strong association, that we already had an idea to date of who that student was. So that was an interesting thing to see. But as far as running the workshops, we're still in the process. We haven't done it yet. So that's coming up. We're hoping on the week of November 25th. And those workshops take place once a week for 3 weeks straight. So I don't think we'll really get a good understanding until after that's taken place. And then we'll probably need some additional time as well to see the impact. Our hope is, I think, to really see the impact in years to come. When we look at years down the line, year 3, year 4, I hope that we see a positive school culture through opening up this dialogue.
And
Thanks.
I'll speak on with regards to inside an elementary school classroom. For sure, we're seeing results. And when we're teaching the lessons, when I'm teaching a lesson, the discussion amongst these kids, you know, I have 11 and 12-year-olds. It's very powerful. It's very supportive, and you just go back to that word of normalizing it. They're not afraid to talk about it, and I think that's results enough right there that it's something that they feel comfortable to bring up, and they feel safe. So yeah, I'm seeing results for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I would just like to add that I'm a bit of a transplant. I came from Vancouver, I guess about 8 years ago. And in Vancouver, they actually, every school has to have a social emotional program in the elementary level in every classroom. Schools get to choose which social emotional program they want to use, but it is implemented school-wide. And as a counselor, it does make a difference because I'm not dealing with the tier 1 anymore. I can focus and concentrate on those kids that are falling into the tier 2, tier 3. And that makes a huge difference. And like Chris says, you have a common language and a school-wide understanding that makes it safe for people to talk about things that maybe might not have had that level of comfort without it.
That's fantastic news to hear. Thank you so much. Chair, can I keep going because I don't see anyone else on the list?
Yes, you may.
Awesome. I'll ask my cheeky question. Nika, who won the contest?
Well, actually, Chris was the first winner, but we had, if you saw the slide before, so one of the things that I would do is every week when I bring in their personalized gift, I take a photo, and then I would send out a school-wide email acknowledging their winning and tried to be witty or funny. I don't know if I was. I thought I was. So I think we had 6 winners in total, and it was actually, we had a different winner every week, and we didn't even plan that. It just happened like that. I did a similar thing at Pauline Hare, and the first winner, her name was France, Madame France. It's a French immersion school. So my little catchphrase was "Vive la France," and she won twice. And I didn't want her to win because she wanted homemade chocolate chip cookies. So I had to make cookies. Yes.
Well, if you ever need homemade cookies, let me know and I can pinch it for you.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Garrick wants chocolate chip.
Okay. Can I keep going, Chantal? I have a couple more. Sorry. I know everybody wants to go home. This question's for Kirsten, actually. It's about the 3 tiers. I'm just wondering if they sometimes might flow, like if some students need immediate support and they're a tier 2, but there are some tier 1 elements. can it sort of flow according to need and change immediately, or is there a bit of a red tape process for them to change tiers? I'm wondering.
That's a good question. Thank you for that question. So exactly that. It's very flexible. And in fact, we expect that students flow between tiers in terms of their needs. So we're very careful when we're talking MTSS that we don't describe a child as a tier 3 child or a tier 3 student or a tier 1 student, or depending on their needs, because we know that humans are diverse and student need is highly individualized. And so we may have a student that at any given point in time may be presenting with tier 3 needs in terms of mental health, depending on life circumstances and what's happening for them. And so we need to support them in that way. But we know that their needs in terms of literacy and numeracy, for example, may be easily met within a tier 1 framework, and so they may have their needs met in using some of the same universal strategies that are available to all students. So it's a very good question, because I think sometimes it's misunderstood, and the deeper we get into our understanding of MTSS, the more we come to realize the flexibility there. Yeah, we would expect for any of us as humans, if you think about your own experiences even, we flow in and out of those tiers depending on things going on for all of us. So yeah, good question.
Music to my ears. Thank you, Kirsten. One more question, Chair, if I may. I'm sorry. No one else is asking questions. This is for Chris. It's an easy question. 10:30 tomorrow, understanding stress response. Is that a real invitation, or is that?
100% for sure.
Okay.
Yep.
See you there.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
You bet.
Thank you everybody for your presentations. It's really heartwarming when you all come up here and just get to see you all and share and learn more about what's going on in the schools and the programs that are rolling out. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to get back to Seaview tomorrow. I was there just last week. So, and I'm hoping you're feeling better, Lindsay. Awesome. Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. I see that Leanna Pellegrin has said, love that a lesson can be sent home if one is missed. It's thinking about the open parachute program. And then Tim Harris said, normalizing it is right. That's incredibly important. School-wide helps with the culture in the school. I think we all know that here. It's you know, talking about it amongst your friends and stuff like that, and having your peers talk about it definitely helps kind of ease those conversations amongst each other and stuff. I am going to take some time now, if that's okay, to ask a couple of my own questions. They've covered a lot of the ones that I've been thinking about, but I'm going to go way back now to Laura's part, her part of her presentation, and it's about the triangulation of student data. I'm wondering, like, is this triangulation of student data, are we doing this for all the students, like in all the district sort of thing? And are we compiling that data and putting them into our priority groups, right? So we're learning about those priority groups as well, and kind of putting them in those buckets so that we can kind of track those students specifically. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering how we're doing that, just because there's really is no desegregated data on mental health for our priority students, except for Indigenous students, but we don't even have the desegregated data of the students who are Indigenous who also have disabilities or have other identities as well. That intersectional piece that kind of comes into play when it comes to mental health especially. So if you could sort of kind of expand on that, that would be really fantastic.
Not sure what it is specifically. I'm expanding on that was a lot.
I know, right? Like you could be here all night, but if you could just let me know, like, is it all schools doing it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, thank you. I think those are beautiful jumping off points for us, and of course we would love to talk about this for the next few hours. So Dover and see if you don't mind staying on for a few more hours, that'd be great. So the triangulation of data is something that we are moving toward, and it's aspirational at the moment. As you're aware, we don't have really accessible district-wide data yet, but we are sort of working on that piece. And yes, we would look at our data in some way, shape, or form. It might not be the actual assessment, and we talked about that, as well as maybe adapting an assessment to meet the needs specifically. And when we look at local or district data, we have way more ability to disaggregate and to make sure that we are checking in on every student, whereas the provincial data, that's difficult to disaggregate if it's not collected and presented that way. Whereas, for example, the red, yellow, green snapshot is at the school level. So it is physically and literally the school teams, depending on, you know, what those look like, sound like in any particular school, sitting down and going through each and every student and looking at those domains and you know, creating that snapshot. And so whether a student has multiple factors like the, you know, Indigenous ancestry that we want to look at, and they're a child in care with a designation or something, right? We're going to be, the schools will be reviewing every single student, and then they can aggregate that or disaggregate that because all of the data is there. And so that's just one example as we build toward an area of focus. So if we're looking at literacy, we want to triangulate the literacy data. If we're looking at mental health, wellness, we want to pull multiple sources of data, most importantly at the, you know, at the school level, so they can have snapshots, they can dig in a little bit deeper, they can be looking and assessing at different levels so they can get a really, really clear picture.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's fantastic. Awesome. I have another question, and it is, because this sort of flows in, it's mainly a follow-up question to a certain degree. I'm thinking about the students that don't really get flagged, that kind of fly under the radar, right? And we know, like, through the McCreary report, because I actually went and read it again. We'd gotten it earlier in the spring, and I went through it again today. And, you know, 46% of students said that they didn't know who to go to for mental health. And so I'm wondering, what are we doing for those folks who might not, you know, be flagged within the classroom itself? What are we doing to make sure that they know where to go? What are some initiatives that we're rolling out within the district to kind of help sort of aid in that search for them?
I don't mind jumping in on this one. It's a very multifaceted response too. I think it's certainly that collective responsibility piece is huge. So we need, just as you say, for students who may be sort of flying under the radar, who maybe their presentation is sort of withdrawn or quiet, or maybe just actually you know, have a very good way of maybe externally appearing as though they're doing just fine, but internally are really struggling. So it's definitely bringing that tier 1 level of awareness raising into every single classroom. There are a few pieces here. Our counselors and CYFSWs who are key point people around access to wellness resources in our school buildings are absolutely pivotal. So it's something sometimes as simple as resource sharing. So steadily those resources, as they're coming to us from some of our community partners, are shared with those individuals. And then in their monthly meetings, we bring in a community partner to each of those meetings to talk about resources available so that they can promote them and have accurate and up-to-date information. The other thing is, for like at a broad level, that staff wellness piece is a really big component as well. And so I think Chris did a really good job of talking about it through the lens of a classroom teacher. We can't make assumptions that all of the adults in our system feel comfortable having conversations about mental health. And so increasingly normalizing the conversation and bringing it into our way of being, that this is something that we talk about here. This is something that we model the importance of talking about, of making a point of really putting accessing resources out there as just something that we all need to do. Some of those pieces are very, very much ongoing. I think in your information sheet, I referenced the new position that Sean Shaw has of District Principal, Safe Schools and Wellness. We've also increased a mental health coordinator position to full-time this year, and they're really well positioned to be interacting with our community partners, as well as really equipping some of our school-based folks to know what resources are out there. A good example that jumps to mind is a partnership with Island Health. So along with our Healthy Schools promoter from Island Health, he's been able to, at the request of secondary principals at the end of last year, he's been able to put together a whole series of targeted substance use prevention resources and awareness raising resources for the adults. Because one of the gaps that was raised was that the adults in our system, they feel as though kids have more information about some of these topics than they do. And so it feels really intimidating sometimes to even be bringing those discussions into classroom settings. So it's very multifaceted, but those partnerships are very, very active and very, very critical to how we're moving forward. I would say we're just, in many ways, just at beginning stages of really enriching the quality and the access of those resources for all staff and students.
If I may add to that, the flying under the radar really creates a really good picture, actually. And I just want to bring that back to, again, with the triangulation. It's really important that we don't rely on just one source of data, because you're right. Somebody, many could slip through cracks, could be flying under radars. When I reflect on our overarching student screener with the red, yellow, green, they're multifaceted domains, because kids, in a school setting, there'll be adults at the table that know every single kid in the school. And when we go through something that's so beautifully fleshed out, like the screener that we use with the domains, they might fly under the radar maybe in 4 of those domains, but not in 2. And that's why it's really important that we look carefully at our tools. The other piece is that every piece of, sort of data, I think you mentioned a really good one actually around resources, and that is something obviously that Kirsten was able to really fully respond to, but there'll be a whole bunch of data that some alarming, some maybe not as much, and we're not able to focus, and we might not be able to respond to all aspects of all the data. We really have tried to hone in, stay really connected to the strategic plan, but choose our assessments wisely, triangulate them, and then support schools in responding more specifically to the data that really pops up.
Thank you. I see, Don, you popped up on screen. Would you like to
I'm just really enjoying the conversation. I really enjoyed the presentations. And I just wanted to add, I share your wonders, like when we get our YDI information, and they do a demographic breakdown of our district. So they do know the number of students who identify as Indigenous. And yet they don't disaggregate the data for us. So when we get a broad response that says certain percentage of our students say they don't want to access resources, or they might say here's the number of adults in their neighborhood community that they can trust and connect with, it doesn't disaggregate that out for us. But that just leads to a question that we have when we're talking with our school leaders, like, hey, if this is what the broad data is, what about some of our priority populations? And they know the individual students, and they have those connections with them, and they can probably either answer for them and say, yeah, we've spoken to students about their sense of belonging, or who their adults are, the resources, or the supports that are in place in their home, as Tim spoke to some of the homes that our students go to where they need support. So yeah, we ask lots of questions, but our schools dig in at the classroom level and in the individual student level. So that data is there, and those stories are there. So yeah, sometimes the concern from a big picture data where you're like, geez, I wish they gave us more. The more is there. It's just in those stories and individual relationships at the school level.
Thank you, Don, and thank you, Laura and Kirsten, for your very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Oh goodness, it's been a long 24 hours. Sorry, we're having a hard time formulating our questions as well as we would like tonight. And it's very, I think, fortuitous that we're talking about mental health today of all days. I think we're all kind of feeling it a little bit. I just kind of want to, address the elephant in the room here. And I do want to send out a lots of thanks to our staff during this time. Louie and I hope I'm going to get everybody's name right here. Nika and Chris and Lindsay. I know I'm missing some quite a few people here, but everybody on the screen here and everybody in our school district, what you're doing for our students, you know, like Chris had said, you know, it's like teachers are there to teach the curriculum, right? And now we're asking them to do more in teaching that mental health component. And they themselves have a mental health component for themselves as humans, as teachers, as people within our communities. And so I wanted to thank you all for stepping up and doing something that wasn't specifically in maybe your job description to 10, 15, 20 years ago, but unfortunately is a huge priority in all of our schools around the province and in Canada and the US, I'll probably say as well. So I want to take that time to thank you all for that, and thank you all for your presentations. They were really fantastic. I see that Chris says thanks for the opportunity to present. Yeah, nice to see you, Tim and Naomi, and see you tomorrow, Mark. Have a good night, everyone. I might actually try to get there tomorrow for the 10:30. I'm not quite sure. We will see. But I'm really hoping that I can come because I've been really curious about the open parachute since we learned about it. I think Laura mentioned it a few months ago, and I've been like, oh, I wanna learn. So thank you very much for the invitation, Chris, and thank you everyone for your presentations today. I did hear that we got the Youth Development Index, but I'll send an email and go, hey, can we get that? I know that's coming to us. It's all good, but I'm these reports and things like that are actually really integral in how we make our decisions and being informed, and then hearing from these personal accounts, this qualitative data is really fantastic, and I really appreciate these presentations that you've done this evening. Thank you. Is there any other questions or anything? Nope. Okay. Let's see here. We're going to go to 9, which is correspondence referred from the regular board meeting. And those of you who have done presentations and you don't want to stay any longer for our end, you are more than welcome to have a good evening at home or wherever you are and go and hopefully relax. So I don't think there's any correspondence referred from the regular board meeting. No unfinished business, no new business. And is there any questions? No questions. Thank you very much, Karen. So we are now going to adjournment. Mark has a motion to adjourn. Do we have a seconder? Tim, thank you very much for seconding that. Is there anybody opposed? Don't think there is tonight. Nobody's opposed, and that is passed. We are adjourned for this evening. Thank you very much, everybody.